tutorial, we're going to look at some of our modify functions. Note that I've come back to that initial extrusion project that we were playing with. So modifiers are essentially act as a shortcut for when we need to modify our body, but we don't want to go through the rigmarole of drawing the sketch and then extruding or cutting. So the most obvious one to start with is fillet. If I want to do a fillet, I can grab an edge, or I can grab a face, and I can adjust it here or with the arrow, and I can essentially create a rounded edge. So I'm taking away that sharpness and I'm rounding it over. Our next modifier that I want to look at is chamfer. By chamfering something, what it allows me to do is grab an edge, and I'm essentially putting a straight or a flat face on it. In this case, we're working on a curve, but we've still got that flat edge which is spun around it. Typically you would see in a bolt with a countersunk hole. Same thing, we can adjust the distance for how big the chamfer is. We can also adjust the way the chamfer works. Here it's an equal distance, but we can do two distances. So you can see it's becoming a steeper chamfer. Or you can go a distance and an angle to get a similar result. So that's fillets and chamfers, which are quite straightforward. The next thing that I want to show you, which is going to be really useful for 3D printing, is shelling. Shelling enables us to make an object hollow. In this case, I'm going to select the underside of the object, and you can see how by shelling the inside, and I have options to go outside or both, I have turned this from a solid body to a lightweight shelled body. When you're doing a lot of 3D printing, this is going to be quite important to think about these things, especially if you're making a casing for an object that you need to be able to fit other components into. You want to be able to shell. Thing to note, you'll see, is that the fillet on the outside and the chamfer on the outside is still reflected within here. Essentially what we're doing is we're offsetting all the geometry on the inside. So if we offset close enough, we'll see that geometry reflected on the outside of the object. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete that shell for the time being. You can see that our timeline is starting to build. I can come back and make edits and modifications. I'm actually going to remove the fillet as well. Now, with my object here, this is looking good, but I want to create some holes. It's a really nice function in Fusion is to use the hole wizard. The hole wizard lets me click on a face. I'll go under the top view so I can see it a bit clearer. And I can set a location for a hole. The nice thing about it is it lets me operate and generate a range of different holes. So a counterbore hole, or a countersunk hole, and I also have the option just to do a simple hole. But also what's nice is I can tap these holes as well, so I can actually put a thread into that hole. You can see I have quite a well-resolved control metric where I can essentially enter exactly what size hole it is, what type of thread type, direction, before generating my hole. Here, I'm going to have a go at creating a mirror. To do that, I'm going to select mirror. I want to make sure my pattern type is on bodies because I'm going to mirror the whole body. For my object, I'm just going to drag and select the whole object. And I'm going to create my mirror by selecting a mirror plane. In this case, I'm using a flat face of the object to mirror. I can also use a plane to mirror an object. And as you can see now, I've got two components. One thing to note is they're two separate bodies. So I've mirrored and I've got two separate bodies. If I wanted to, I can then go ahead and I can combine those two bodies. So I grab my target body, my tool body, you can see join, tell it to be a new component, and now we lose that line that's showing us, indicating that it's two separate components. Now we have one component. We'll just take a step back for a second. It's two separate pieces. If I then go ahead and shell, you'll see that I've got two separate components that I'm showing that are just touching each other. When I roll forward and they're combined, if I do the same function and shell, it's one unified component which I'm showing.